Hey, welcome back everybody. We're going to go ahead and do a quick Microsoft Flight Simulator video on the Fenix A320 mod. A short flight, I'm thinking maybe Jacksonville to Atlanta, and we'll show you how to do a sim brief flight and how to read a couple of charts, power up the aircraft, take off, fly, land, and taxi to the gate. This will not be a VAT sim tutorial. I'll try to kind of do VAT sim introductions later as I get a little bit better at dealing with all of the things, the stream, and getting the tools necessary for you guys to be able to absorb the information. So first off, we'll go ahead and hop on in, and then I'll show you how to do a sim brief flight plan. So when you're off in here, you're going to click on the world map. Once you get on the world map, make sure that you have the correct aircraft selected. So in our case, we're going to use the A320 for Fenix with a Delta livery. The flight conditions, I like to set the same flight conditions as I do for VATSIM. So right now, the flight conditions for VATSIM, in order for you to see other planes, only see other planes on the VATSIM network in the game, you have to turn multiplayer to off, air traffic to off, and weather and time preset. Which will bring you over here, and I like to click live weather and live time. So if you set it up this way, when you do sign into VATSIM, the only other aircraft that you will see are the aircraft that are currently logged into the VATSIM network. So when air traffic controllers are talking to you and they're like, hey, go ahead and follow the Delta Airbus on taxiway Bravo. When you look, you can actually see a Delta Airlines Airbus that is also signed onto the VATSIM network, taxiing down Bravo. And then they'll pass by, and you can go ahead and just slip in right behind them and comply with the taxi instructions. So now that we have the flight conditions selected, we're going to go to Jacksonville Airport. So that's KJax. And when you file a SimBrief flight with this mod, all you have to do is select a gate at the correct airport, and you don't have to select any routing. Everything is done for you with SimBrief and the mod. So that's all we do. Select the gate at the airport that we want to take off at and hit fly. So we'll just wait for the for us to go ahead and load into game. And once we're loaded in, I'll pull up SimBrief. It's a little Fenix mod that works in the background that allows it to communicate. Hopefully we can make it through this. Microsoft Flight Simulator had a bit of an update recently, and so I'm having some stability issues. I tried to work through that earlier today. Okay, now that we're in the aircraft, it's cold and dark. I'll pull up SimBrief. So here we are on SimBrief. And really the only things you have to do is once you create a SimBrief account and link it to VATSIM and all that other kind of stuff, what you're going to do is create a new flight under dispatch. Create a new flight. And the airline we're going to use is Delta. So DAL is the code for Delta Airlines. Our flight number is 557. And we're going to depart from Jacksonville. And we're going to arrive in Atlanta, which is KATL. It's going to automatically give us an alternate airport. And our airframe is the Fenix airframe, which you can download this preset on the Fenix Discord channel. It's got that little link there. You just click on the link on the Fenix Discord channel and input that into a file on your desktop, and it will draw that file in. That configures the airplane a little bit, it tweaks it just a little bit better for your flight performance. Once you do that, it generates everything for you, and just hit generate flight. And once you generate it, it will go through the process. And that's all you got to do. I like to use Navigraph to go with it. So I'll pull up Navigraph right here. And then to import what you just had on SimBrief, all you have to do is click on Flights and click on a new flight and from SimBrief. And it will put up what we just filed, which is Jacksonville to Atlanta. Once we do that, it inputs all of the data we need. And what I like to do to make it a little easier, so inside the aircraft, if you play in VR or if you have track IR or anything like that and you just don't want to break immersion, the aircraft has VATs or the charts necessary if you have a Navigraph account that you can reference in the aircraft. But since I have multiple screens, I like to keep a separate Navigraph app running so I don't have to look down and be burdened with that kind of stuff. But what I like to do is when I get a flight, I will look at my departing airport and open up the charts. So a couple of charts that I like to pin, so that way I don't have to keep going through this while I'm in flight. It'll list them here on the bottom and I can just click on them, is the airport and parking spots or the taxi information for Jacksonville. I'll pin that to the bottom. And then I will look at my flight plan and I will look at the departure. And we're on the Arnie 2 departure, so I'll pin that. Now I'll take a look at Atlanta and I'll open up the charts list for Atlanta. A couple of things that I want to pin is your star, which is your arrival. And our arrival is Jedi 2. So we're looking for Atlanta's Jedi 2 arrival. And there we go. I'll pin that. And then the approach plate. So we are projected to land at 26 right. So I'll go ahead and scroll down here till I find 26 right, and we're going to do an ILS approach. Pin that, and last, the airport info for Atlanta. So that way we know where we're going once we get on the ground. And what's good about Navigraph is it will give you a little icon where you are. So now that we have all of our charts that apply to this flight, pinned down at the bottom, simply all I have to do is just click between the charts. And when I don't want to see the chart and I just want to see where I am in relation to the flight, I can just close out the chart and it will give me where I am in relation to the flight. So now that we have all of the pre-flight charts and all that kind of stuff selected, what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and power up the aircraft. So first thing is first, we're going to turn on batteries 1 and 2. So master batteries 1 and 2, located right here next to the voltmeters. Turn on battery 1, turn on battery 2. And we have external power available here at the stand from a little ground power supply unit that's like a generator that sits off in the nose of the aircraft. And that is available, hence the green available light for external power. And then what we'll do is we'll just click that on. And you can hear now the plane being powered off of the generator. Next thing that we want to do is we want to align our navigation system. So for those of you who are familiar with DCS or anything like that, most planes have an internal navigation system. But it takes some time for the gyroscopes and all of the things to kind of align to make sure that the aircraft can be as precise as possible. With modern avionics, these things can pretty much land themselves. So we have 3 nav computers, and we're going to turn them on. 1, 2, and 3. Now, it takes some time for these things to actually align. In real life, it's anywhere between 7 and 11 minutes. I'll show you down here real quick where you can reference that, how much align time you have. But what we can do is we can do some other things while that's aligning. So what I do is I'll do a quick sweep down the panel, just extinguishing any white lights. Right here, crew air supply, we'll turn that on. And our fuel pumps, we'll go ahead and turn those on as well. And then lastly, we'll arm our emergency exits and switch on our navigation lights. Okay. Now that that's all set up, we'll swing over here to our EFB, and that's what makes this aircraft mod so awesome, is that you have a just a nice little computer or an iPad that will give you all the information that you really need for the flight. You rarely have to look outside of the game to find out any information. All right, so a quick brief on the EFB. Oh. It operates just like an iPad. Just press the little button here. It'll bring you back to the main menu, and you've got your Fenix page, or your Fenix app, and that'll give you everything you need to do with the aircraft itself. So you have your flight, and what's great is that we'll import it from SimBrief. So all of our flight plan that we made in SimBrief, it will now pull that information from the SimBrief servers into the aircraft. And you can see now we're taking off at Jacksonville, we're landing in Atlanta. It'll give us the weather for our departing airport, our arrival airport, and the current METAR for the alternate airport. And then a quick progress of where we are on the route. So Arnie to departure, with a Baxley transition, direct to Larry, and direct to Lars, and then a Jedi 2 arrival at Atlanta. Next along the bottom, you have ground services, and this will you can enable, disable various things around the aircraft, your ground power unit, your chocks. You can open and close doors. Right now, the front left door is open because the jetway is attached for loading passengers. Once the passengers are loaded, the jetway will automatically retract and the door will close. Your mass and balance page, this will have everything you need to know about loading the aircraft. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and load the aircraft, and I'm going to go ahead and just do instant, so that way we can get everything loaded and get the numbers that we need. You'll notice the plane kind of bounced up and down because it added weight to the aircraft. The door will close, and the taxiway will retract. This gives us a lot of numbers that we need, and really the two numbers that you're going to need later are these two here. The ZFW in pounds, which is, I think it's the gross vehicle weight, and gross vehicle fuel weight. I don't really know exactly what how those numbers are calculated, but I just know the system does it, and these are the two numbers that we're going to input into the flight computer. Next is your panel states. You can go ahead and turn the aircraft on and off, fully on, cold and dark, to help you kind of practice turning the airplane off and then turning it on, and just switch the whole thing off, and you have your choices here. And then your sim settings, various things around the aircraft that you can kind of put in and save as a default. So next we'll go into what they call the McDo, which is essentially our flight computer. And we're going to go ahead and load in all the information that we need so that we can begin our engine startup in our taxi. So first things first, we're going to go into the ATSU menu and the AOC, and we're going to input where we're going, so your flight in it. Then what's great about this mod, again, like I said, with SimBrief, you're able to import it. So we're just going to request the data here. Once we request it, it should pull it from the servers and input it here in these information blocks, which it did. So Delta Airlines 557, departing Jacksonville, destination Atlanta with an alternate airport, KBNA. Not sure what that is yet. I'll have to look that up. Once that's done, we'll move into our init page, and we'll do the same thing. We'll request the information, and it should pull it in. All right, so it pulls in Jacksonville to Atlanta, and our flight number will manually input in here. So that is DAL 557, Delta Airlines 557. Our cost index, which is on the flight plan, and you can reference the flight plan here in the Pilot Brief app. All you do is click to import your last operational flight plan from SimBrief, and you will see it here. And this is essentially your flight plan. Scroll through it as you will. So our cost index is listed right here as CI. So our cost index is 5, and we're just going to input that in here and insert that. Our cruise altitude is 300, so that's 30,000 feet, or flight level 300. So we'll input 300 and insert it, and it will automatically pull the temperature expected at that altitude, which is negative 29 degrees Celsius. We'll clear out any of these messages here at the bottom, and then we will request the wind data. And what this will do is it'll pull in the data from the METARs for the wind, and that will help fine-tune some performance measures of the aircraft and fuel and all that kind of stuff. And it pulls it in at various altitudes. You'll see where the wind is at various altitudes, and that kind of helps the plane, better fly in its autopilot and routing. All right, so our init data, page A, is complete. Now we'll move to page B by clicking this arrow here. And these were those two numbers that we were talking about earlier, our gross vehicle weight and our gross vehicle fuel weight. There's our align time, 1 minute remaining. So to get those two numbers, you go back into the Fenix app and you go to mass and balance. And so here, our gross vehicle weight, what is that? 128,848 pounds. So we'll just put that into we'll round it down. So essentially you'll take 128.8. So you'll type it in here, 128.8. And since it's requesting a slash, go to slash here, and we'll get the second number, which is 30.1. And we'll type in 30.1. And then we'll just insert that there. Our block fuel is the fuel that we have on board. So we had requested 12,940 pounds. Excuse me. And it loaded it with our mass and balance page. So what we're going to do is we're going to round this to 13. Or you could go 12.9. So we'll just do 12.9 here. So we'll go 12.9, or you could round up to 13. It works. It's minuscule differences. So now that you put in the fuel, it will take a second or two, and it will calculate how much fuel it's going to use for the trip, how much it's going to use for taxi, idle at the stand, and it puts all of that stuff in there, and it will tell you how much extra fuel you have for the flight. So whenever you're like, you can always go to your init B page, and it'll give you the extra fuel in pounds and the extra time in minutes remaining in the air. So if you want to know what that is in hours, you just take that number and divide it by 60, and that'll give you the amount of hours remaining. Okay, so now that the init is good, we're going to move to our performance page. So, what's great about this mod is that it has a performance calculator for departures. You just click on the departure app for performance, and it'll bring you to this window here. All you have to do is find out your takeoff airport, the runway. In our case, we're scheduled to take off at 26, so runway 26. Just click the drop-down menu, and it'll give you 26. It is currently dry, so you can leave it dry or wet, but it's dry right now. And our flaps are going to be optional. Toga, we're not going to use toga. We're going to use flex to temp. Anti-ice will be off, and the packs will be on. The packs are like air conditioning and additional kind of things like that, which draws more power, makes the engine work a little harder. If you guys can think about, like, when you're in your car, and if you've got this, dinky little 4-cylinder engine and you crank the AC up, you start to lose a little bit of horsepower. So it's kind of the same thing in an aircraft. You're just telling the computer to compensate for the fact that you've got these two huge packs blowing cold air and pressurizing the cabin. What we'll do now is we're going to sync the load sheet, so our total weight and our percentages, and we're going to sync the weather. So it's going to pull in the weather, and then we're going to calculate. And off to the right here, it will give us the numbers that we need to input. So this app is calculating our takeoff performance. So you can see where V1 and V are at 143 and V2 at 146 knots. So 143 and 146. So we'll put in 143 for V1, 143 for V2, and 146. Sorry, VR and V2. Next, it's going to tell us what flap setting we should be at when we take off. So the flaps, it's asking us to set for 1, so flaps 1, and our trim is down 0.2. So how you input that is you'll put in 1, then a slash and DN, just like it shows on the chart. Delta November 0.1, and just insert right there. Our flexed temp, since we're going to use our max flex setting on our throttles instead of toga, 68 degrees. So we can put in here 68. And our thrust out and acceleration cutout. Essentially, when do we bring the engines to thrust climb mode after we take off, is 1,030 feet. So 1030. We'll put that in there. Like 1030. And then 1030 right here. So our takeoff performance is good. Our init A and B is good. Now we'll move to our flight plan. Since we're not using any air traffic control today, we're just going to go ahead and load the entire flight plan in there. So we're taking off from Jacksonville. We're going to click on our departure, and we're departing from runway 26. So we'll click on 26, and we have the Arnie 2 departure with a Baxley transition. Once we input that information, we'll insert it into the computer. Looks good. We have a discontinuity, but that's because there's a manual before it, which means that we're going to have to manually turn, or air traffic control is going to manually turn us. That's okay. Then we'll input our destination. We're arriving in Atlanta, expecting runway 26 right. Just click ILS 26 right. And it is the Jedi 2 arrival. So we'll click up here to Jedi 2. And we have a Lars transition, so where it's planning for us to go to intercept, and we'll show you kind of that in flight. So we'll insert that there. And that looks good. New Hope, Wookiee, Jedi, Lim, Daffy Graham, Poba, manual, and then we turn in toward Bamboo, which is the final part right there. So that looks good. Alright, now we'll just do a little cleanup here. I don't like having these armrests up that kind of interfere with my view, so I usually put those up, and I take the EFB off on the other side, just to free up some RAM, performance, that kind of stuff for the computer. And it looks like we are good to go, so we'll move back into the Fenix app. So our computer is good. Alright, we've set in our init page alpha, our init page bravo. We've loaded our performance measures for takeoff. We've loaded our flight plan, and everything looks good. So next, what we'll do is, at this time, we would request pushback and start, or push and start. Since there's no VATSIM here or no air traffic controller, we're just going to go ahead and go through those motions. So before you start your engines, you want to go ahead and put your beacon on. And you're going to turn on the APU using the APU master switch here, located in the center overhead panel. Give it a couple of seconds and hit the APU start. And that will spin the APU up in the rear of the plane, sticking right out the tail. When that is ready, it will turn available. You can click down here on your APU status, and it will show on your lower ECAM page. So these two pages here, they're called the ECAM screens. And then here in front of you, you have your navigation display on the right, and you have your flight display on the left. So if you ever hear me say, hey, you know, your upper ECAM messages, any kind of messages will pop up here. Status, you know, is telling me my TCAS is on standby. I have a company message. My parking brake is on. Your lower ECAM can be changed, and it can be changed using these toggle switches here. The aircraft will automatically change your ECAM pages based on where you are in your flight. See, there's available there, and available up top. So now we're just going to enable the bleed, and that will help with, it will use the exhaust and the air and all that kind of stuff to help power a lot of things on the aircraft. So we can detach that generator that's running outside of the plane. So what we'll do is we will turn off the external power, and you're going to hear a weird kind of switch over. When I disable the external power and the plane starts to run on its own power, the APU. A little bit of a switch over there. And since the generator is still out there, it'll show available until I turn the generator away. So we'll go to ground services, and I'll have them take the generator away. I'll remove the chocks, and I will connect the tug. So here comes the tug. The external power is not available anymore because the generator is not out there. Make sure our beacon light is on. Our nav light is on. And we are ready to start engines here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to disengage the parking brake. And how you can tell, by the way, how you can tell that the tug is connected. All right, right here you see a nose wheel steering disconnected. Right, nose wheel steering disconnected. What that means is there's a manual pin on the front landing gear, the nose gear, that the tug operator will come up to and remove, or input a pin. I'm sorry, they'll take a pin and they'll stick it in there, and what that does is that prevents the pilot from turning the wheels on the front of the aircraft. It's a manual disconnect that they stick in there. So that when the tug is connected, you don't damage the tug or cause an accident or damage the gear if the pilot inputs something on the steering. So you can tell they're hooked up when you see nose wheel steering disconnect. So once you see that on your upper ECAM page, you can go ahead and release the parking brake, and you won't drift anywhere. So we're going to go ahead and start the pushback, and we're going to go backwards, and we're going to push the tail of the aircraft to the right. So you're going to use the right arrow, and that will turn the tail. So the arrows left and right, you want to think about which way do you want the tail to turn. So if you want the tail to go left, you hit the left arrow. If you want the tail to go right, you hit the right arrow. Going to back away from the stand and face toward runway 26. I think that's far enough. All right, we're going to go ahead and stop the tug. Re-engage the parking brake. And disconnect the tug. While we're doing that, we're going to turn our engine crankshaft to start. Turn on engine 2. Make sure that the engines are at idle. Sometimes it glitches. Now, once the tug is disconnected in real life, the tug operators or the ground crew operator will show all of the pins that they put into the aircraft. And they'll show the pilots or the co-pilots, hey, we didn't leave any pins in the aircraft that disconnect the steering or anything like that. And they'll physically show them, and that gives the pilot a thumbs up that they're good to go. Okay, we'll check our QNH for our departure here. So Jacksonville's altimeter is, looking for it. 3,000, so 3000. That's the current altimeter setting. Engine 2 is available. We'll go ahead and activate or turn on engine 1. We'll put our constraints on our navigation display. And once engine 1 is available, we'll start moving flight control surfaces. The engines also power the hydraulics, so you can't really move around flight control surfaces without hydraulics, so you wait until all of the engine systems are on, running around, then you can do your flight control checks, start moving flaps, that kind of stuff. Now in the air, when you lose engines in the air, there's different things that you can do, bypasses, ram air turbines, and all of those are to help either A, start the engine or start the APU, or provide electrical power or hydraulic pressure to some of the surfaces, even if the engines go out. Okay, both engines are available, so we'll turn our master switch back to normal mode, and we will turn off the bleed and turn off the APU. So when you click the switch off, what you'll see is the APU is still available. It's going to spin down, but it takes time for that to happen. So the available will turn off once the APU is spun all the way down. All right, we're going to arm our taxi lights. Turn our strobe light on. And I should have turned on seatbelts and no smoking a lot sooner, like before I push back. Everything else looks good. A last check, no white lights. I don't see any white lights, so we're looking good on the overhead panel. And we will do our flight surface check. We're going to set our auto brakes to maximum. So if we have to stop during a takeoff, when the thrust lever, during takeoff, when you take the thrust lever and you pull back on it, it will engage the brakes automatically. Max capacity on the brakes, on the brake pressure. But there comes a certain point at, I want to say it's V1, where you can't stop, right? There's physically not enough runway left for you to stop. So what'll happen is the pilot will take their hands off of the thrust levers so that after you achieve that speed, that ground speed, the pilot will take his hands off the thrust levers so as to, if something were to happen during the takeoff, they won't instinctually pull back on the levers and engage the brakes. Because once you achieve that speed, no matter what happens, you have to go into the air. All right, now that the max brake is set, flaps to 1, like our performance page said, we're going to arm our ground spoilers, which means they will automatically come up when we pull back on the thrust levers if we have to. That assists with the braking. Let's see, what else do we have to do? We'll take a look at our chart here. So here we are facing toward runway 26. And what'll happen is we'll taxi via Hotel Alpha Charlie. All right, so we'll taxi via Hotel Alpha Charlie. This is how you get your taxi instructions from VATSIM. You have a chart up like this, very similar, and they'll say, hey, taxi to runway 26 via Hotel Alpha Charlie or Hotel Bravo Charlie, or they could be total buttheads and go via Romeo, November, Papa, Victor, Juliet, Alpha, Charlie, but, this helps you kind of see physically where you're going to go. Now, pilots have an iPad, and they have these charts on their iPads, and they can actually take their finger, and they can mark a line on those taxiways to help them remember if they're not writing it down like they should be. So we'll go to the departure. And here is the Arnie 2 departure out of Jacksonville. We're taking off from 26, so we're going to fly heading of 257, and we have to get above 540 feet pretty quickly, and we have to be at or above 11,000 feet by Arnie. So understanding how we're taking off, and Arnie being at least 11,000 feet, we're going to go ahead and set our altitude to 11,000 feet. All right, air traffic control will give you a climb and maintain altitude. They'll say something like, you know, climb and maintain 5,000, expect whatever your flight level is, about 10 minutes after departure, so on and so forth. But all right, so that is set. That is set. Our ECAM gives us kind of a takeoff checklist. Auto brake is set to max. If it wasn't, it would tell you, set it to max. It's set to max. Our seatbelt signs are on. The cabin is ready. The spoilers are armed, and the flaps are set to takeoff configuration. In our case, they're set to 1. So if you put in 1 in your computer and your flaps were set to 2, that would not match, and there'd be a warning. And then our takeoff config for testing. It will run through one final check to make sure everything is good. And that button is right here. Takeoff config. And everything is normal. We are ready to go. So, taxi lights are on. Everything is on. We are good to go. Let's bring up my taxi sheet one more time. And what we're going to do is we're going to disengage the parking brake, and I have a little hotkey set for it. So we've disengaged the parking brake, and we're going to add a little thrust, and that should push us forward. And we'll slowly bring it back down to idle and let the idle thrust take us down the taxiway. Move ourselves onto taxiway hotel. It's a nifty little Jetstar aircraft right there. Little graphical glitch. Okay, we have turned on to hotel. Bravo is going to be the first one right up here on our right. We're going to pass Bravo, and we're going to get on Alpha. Take a right turn on Alpha. Apply a little brake pressure here. Our right turn on Alpha, because runway 26 is right ahead of us. And we'll just coast down the rest of the taxiway to get to the other side. While we're doing that, I'm pulling up the Arnie 2 departure, doing our final checks over here. You can see where we are on the airport right now. What's great is that, you know, as we move, it moves, and it does a pretty good job at tracking us with a fair amount of accuracy. Move to the Arnie 2 departure. So fly runway heading, which in this case is 257 because we're taking off at runway 26. So we're going to fly runway heading, and then we'll turn ourselves direct Kimmel or Arnie, one of the two. And I'll show you when an air traffic control says, hey, go direct something on the Airbus, it makes it pretty easy for you to just go direct. Just bypass all the stuff in between, and it'll turn the plane directly to the waypoint you're asking it to. Let's add a little brake pressure, going a little fast here, and then I gotta turn on the TCAS system. So right here, switch that to on. And you'll see the TCAS message went away here on the eCam page. Toxic, hey man, thank you very much, I appreciate it. It's that helps out a lot, brother. It's hopping back and forth between Star Citizen and Microsoft Flight Simulator. I forget, it's two different kind of audiences. Alright, we're going to turn here on Charlie to get to our runway, which is 26. Okay, normally you're going to want to check the left, check the right, make sure nobody's there. We're going to turn on our strobe lights. Just check our lights one more time before we get up on there. Right here is our hold short line. Just so that you know, this yellow and black line is a hold short. If you pass it, then you are incurring into the runway, and planes landing will not land. So if anybody ever tells you, hey man, hold short runway 26, this is what they're talking about. No matter what taxiway you're on, if you come across this line, you see 26 on one side, 08 on the other, which is the other way the runway is going. This is what they're talking about. And then when they say, hey, you're clear to cross, you're going to turn on your strobes. And I'm going to turn on my landing lights and my takeoff lights. So right now they'll be like, hey, you know, in this case, Delta 557, you are clear for takeoff, runway 26, fly runway heading. I'll say, you know, Delta 557, clear for takeoff, runway 26, runway heading. Lights are on. We're going to just line up on the center line here. Come on. Still getting used to it. I had a set of pedals, but they just weren't really working for me, so I'm just using a joystick and a button for brakes. It's a little jolty. Alright. Alright, so for takeoff, what we're going to do is we're going to add a little stick pressure forward. So we're going to push the stick forward just a little bit, and then we're going to ramp the engines up to 50%. So if you look at my eCam upper, the engines are ramping up to 50%, just to make sure that both engines spin up at the same time. And then we're going to go straight into flex to temp. Keeping that downward pressure and just staying on the center line. Once we pass 60 knots, we're going to ease up on that nose pressure. We're going to continue 100 knots, and we're going to get to V1. V1, hands off the throttle, rotate, nice back pressure, positive rate, gear up. There she goes. We'll fly the needles here. And then in a second, when we reach 1,000 feet, like we programmed before, it's going to tell us to go into thrust climb. So there we go. Bring the thrust levers back to climb mode, which is labeled right here. Bringing them back to climb mode. And we'll arm the autopilot. So now, our next waypoint is Kimmel. And so, as we climb up to 11,000 feet, you'll see on our chart, we're leaving the runway, and we're just going to turn direct to Kimmel. We're just going to assume that air traffic control has said, hey man, clear direct Kimmel. So how do you do that? 1, disarm the ground spoilers. 2, retract the flaps, because we're past the safe zone for flaps. And 3, click the little DIR button, direct button. And we're going to click on Kimmel, and we're going to insert that. And the plane should automatically turn toward Kimmel. There you go. Clear direct. We're going to continue our ascent, and our, I think it was 300 was our flight level. So we're going to go ahead and rotate our knob up to 30,000 feet. Flight level 300. Too easy. Toxic, how, if you're still viewing right now, what's your favorite aircraft that you fly here in Microsoft Flight Simulator? Or any simulator, really? Is a brilliant view right there. Coming out of Jacksonville. Nice, coming out of Jacksonville. Alright. So when we get about 10,000 feet, we're going to turn off our landing lights and our taxi lights, which I probably could have turned off. There we go. And we're going to turn off the seatbelt sign. Alright, so the speed limit in pretty much everywhere is if you're below 10,000 feet, 10,000 feet or below, you're limited to 250 knots. Now, you'll notice the plane dipped down, went nose level, when it hit 10,000 feet. It's not because it couldn't get any higher, it's because it needed to dip its nose down so it could speed up. Because, you know, gravity. If you want to go faster, you can't, in a commercial jet anyway, you can't climb and accelerate as quickly. Just like you can't descend and slow down as quickly. So you got to do one or the other. Either you're speeding up and then you climb, or you slow down and then you descend. So once we cracked 10,000 feet, we could then speed up beyond 250 knots, get some momentum going, and then increase our climb rate again to our final cruise altitude of flight level 300. And you can see here on the chart how we're approaching Kimmel, and we are above 11,000 feet for waypoint Arnie. And then we're moving to Baxley for the Baxley transition, because pretty much right here at Baxley, we're going to start our descent right back down to Atlanta. Not a long flight at all. So we'll take a look at the RNAV arrival for Atlanta. So this is a little complicated looking. Let's just make sure the plane is set up before I take my heads off of the controls here. Looks good, looks good, looks good. All right. Okay, so, oh man, this is the arrival, the Jedi 2 arrival, and so everything's kind of linked together. So it's the Jedi 2 arrival, and you'll see Lars, New Hope, Destroyer, Wookiee, Jedi, Chewie, X-Wing, Lando. You can kind of see a theme here. So what we're going to do is we're going to be approaching from Lars. All right, so when we hit Lars, we need to be above flight level 240. And then we're going to move New Hope and then Destroyer. You'll notice that's a pretty big descent. That's 10,000 foot difference. So we're going from 240 to 14,000 at waypoint Destroyer. And we need to be at 280 knots. Now, here's where it gets a little different. Atlanta lands east and west. So we are landing at runway 26 right. So you have to take a look here, and it will show you if you're landing this direction versus that direction. So assign 26 right. Cross Jedi at or above 10,000. Cross Daffy at 8,000 and cross Poba at 6,000. So you'll see here Jedi, Daffy, Poba. So I need to be at Poba at 6,000 feet if I'm going to an assigned runway of 26 right. Right? After Poba, proceed direct Zello and then to the ILS for 26 right. Right? And then Zello should be on the approach plate. There it is. This is the final approach plate down onto the runway, and you'll see it Zello, 5,000 feet. So the difference between Poba, which is the last point on the arrival, they're telling us 6,000 feet at Poba, and the first point on the approach plate is Zello, is 5,000 feet. So Poba to Zello, down 1,000 feet. Then the next one, Haynes, 5,000. Bamboo, 4,000. AJ, 2,700. And then we're pretty much landing after that. The approach plate will have your go-arounds. So in this case, if we have to go around, we'll climb to, 4,000 feet with a right turn. That's a 4,000 foot climb, and turn right to get out of the way of traffic. If this was a 26 left, it could be a left turn. Who knows? It gives us our ILS. So our decision altitudes for barometric. Oh no, no. Tragic. What's up, man? You've got our barometric decision altitude and our radio altitude. That's kind of where our thought process is here. Let's see. Set the QNH to standard. I'm doing all right, man. We're about to get into it pretty rough at the end of the week at work, and my dad's showing up to visit on next Sunday. The wife starts a new job. The kids go back to school in a couple of weeks, so it's a lot of like ups and downs. How about you? How's things over there? Can't complain. Yeah, I feel you. You gotta come up and visit, brother. You gotta come up and visit. Or down, I should say. Down and visit. Alright, so real quick on the navigation display. So we set our altitude for 30,000 feet, so flight level 300. We're approaching that, and what you can see here is this little arrow that kind of slants upward and over, up and over, and that is where the computer thinks that you will achieve that altitude. So approximately 10 miles from where we are right now, it is computing that we will achieve 30,000 feet. Now you're going to see something very similar to that arrow, but it points in the other direction, and it's white. It's an arrow that points down, and that means that is your top of descent. So when you hit that arrow on your navigation, you're going to want to start descending for your landing. And so whenever you hear a pilot say, hey, everybody's heard it, hey, we've begun our initial descent, we should be at the airport in like 45 minutes, and you're like, God, why does it take so long to get to the ground? It's because, you know, it takes a long time to get from 30,000 or 40,000 feet down to, you know, the airport level. And you have to do it gradually so as not to make everybody throw up. So you're actually starting a descent, you know, it sometimes can be 60 miles, 70 miles. Yeah, and the air pressure. How was the Michigan trip? Try to switch this. I don't know why the chat's not showing the chat. There we go, actually. Did we do much? Yeah. Yeah, sometimes you just need to... Sometimes you just need to just take a break. You know, even though you're not going on vacation to go on vacation, just being away from the normal grind. You know. Streams. So this is like day 4, I think. I've never tried it before. I've never done it before. You know, I figured, you know, why not? Kind of helps. You know, relax, if you will. It kind of gives me my own space to do things. I don't know if that makes any sense. Plus, I mean, it's a good hobby that doesn't really require a whole lot of money once you get started. It's just a camera and a microphone and play some games. Yeah, I am a little bit worried about that. I don't know why the chat is not showing up on the video. Let's see here. Let's try this. I can't spell the word test. Streamlabs. It was working. Yeah, it was working. Now it's not. I don't know. I'll have to fix that. But yeah, I do get a little worried sometimes. For those of you who didn't know, it's, you know, kind of, sort of. It's kind of, sort of built in, but I made a lot of adjustments to it. But for those of you who don't know, Tragic, you know, he did a lot of Twitch streaming. I think, what did you get up to? About 700 in your heyday? 700 followers and whatnot? Ooh. I need to be at 240 or above, so I need to go ahead and lower my altitude here. 240, and I'll get that going. So we're going to descend now. We're about 40 miles from Mars. 30 average views per stream. Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, you might be right. I don't know why the chat's not working or why it can't be seen, but Tragic says he averaged about 30 views per stream. One thing he learned is that followers really don't mean a whole lot, and he's right and wrong at the same time. I know, thanks. I don't think followers are an indicator of whether or not what you're doing is good. So I think what is a better indicator is that, you know, you have an average view count, a higher average view count, meaning people come on to watch you because they enjoy what you do. Chat box is not working. Maybe I got grounded on Twitch and they're like, hey, you put a song on your video or something like that. Like, you can't have chat. All right, so real quick to get back onto the descent here, just to kind of give you a status. So just like on the charts, ooh, am I there yet? No. So just like on the charts, you have your altitude, what we call constraints. What this means is that you can't be above or below something, or you need to be at something. So how you read that is these altitude numbers, which are written in blue. So here you have 14,000 feet, 11,000 feet, so on and so forth. They have a little line either above, below, or both above and below. So in this case, Destroyer has 14,000 with a little line below it. And Daffy has 8,000 with a line below and above. And I don't see one. There isn't on this chart. What the line means is it's above or below. Meaning 14,000 is above the line. So I need to be above 14,000 feet at this waypoint. And so all aerial charts are written in this way. Now, if 14,000 was under, if the line was above it, 14,000 was below the line, then I would need to be below 14,000 feet. If the line is both on the top and the bottom of the altitude, like it is here on Daffy, that means I must be at that altitude. So Daffy, I need to be at 8,000 feet, not 9,000, not 7,000, at 8,000 feet. Speeds are in red, and those restrictions mean you have to be at that, which it says at 250 knots by Wookiee, meaning I need to be slowed to that speed right when I hit it. So there are no block altitudes here. But anyway, just like the chart, the computer of the aircraft picks up those constraints. So Lars above 240, which you'll see, plus 240. So I can be at Lars anywhere above 240. Now, the next waypoint, which is from Lars to Destroyer, is about 60, 70 miles. I need to descend down to 14,000 feet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and rotate this to 14,000. But it will not descend until after I cross Lars. There it goes. I hit Lars. Throttles go to idle. And I'm in a descent mode. And the plane will descend down to 14,000 feet. It's doing the computation. Right now I'm descending at 300 feet per minute. So the little 3 here that's down below the line means it is descending. And I can actually just set this to the lowest altitude possible now that I'm in the box, which I think on the chart, 26 right, Poba, 6,000 feet. So we're going to go ahead and rotate this down to 6,000. Okay. You'll notice the descent got a little bit more steep. The throttles went to idle, so there's no thrust being provided. I'm just tipping the nose down, just letting gravity do its work. Switch the camera up. There we go. Not sure why it does that. Alright, so where are we at right now? $14,000 feet. It's going to take a second. This is going to take a minute. So, Tragic, I don't know if you're still in here. What do you think? How's the audio? You know, the levels. Is the game too loud? Is the microphone too loud? Am I speaking too close? You know, that kind of stuff. What kind of feedback do you got for me, brother? Oh, it might be. Let me mute the game. Alright, how does that sound? With the game muted. Okay, alright. It's like, you're right, I didn't even think about it, that the sound of the air rushing over the cockpit is probably, gives off like a false static. So flight simulators, or at least for commercial flight simulators, they're extremely complicated, but they're not, they can be boring in between the phases of flight. So here we are, you know, in a mild descent into one of the busiest airports in the country. So if this were in VATSIM, there'd probably be about 50 to 60 planes at any given time that are landing, and it gets pretty stressful pretty quickly. So I don't know if I'm good enough yet to do a stream where I can kind of manage that. But it is definitely something worth seeing if you haven't done it before. And it can be very intimidating to do on your first time. So, you know, anybody taking pilot lessons, you know, they could be the best pilot in the world, but they're like the fear of God on pressing the push to talk button on their radios, you know. I don't know why that is. It's like that in the military as well. Everything's easy until you gotta click that mic, start talking on it. Alright, so we're almost to Waypoint Destroyer. We're about 20 miles, and we need to be at 280 knots, which we are well below 280 knots, and we need to be at above 14,000 feet, so we're doing pretty good here. I've only ever flew a plane on Call of Duty. I'm telling you, man, you should. I think this game is for Xbox as well. It's worth a download. It's probably a lot more stable on Xbox. I mean, you can't do the mod that I'm using, I don't think. But it's definitely worth getting. I don't know what it is. It's... Oh, you're on PC. Oh, nice. Then if you're on PC and you download this game, just be prepared for... I forgot how... What is it, like... I think it's almost like 150 gigs of download just for this game. Oh, really? Alright, so we're going to go ahead and set up our approach here, just to make sure that we're good to go. So our arrival, METAR, is altimeter. I can't read to save my life. Where is it? 2997. So we're going to go ahead and take these out of standard and put in the altimeter setting for Atlanta. 29907. We're going to pull up our destination data, so you can see the computer's already telling us, like, hey man, don't forget to put in the data for your destination. So where we're going to find that is in the performance page. Just like our takeoff stuff, we're going to put in our landing stuff, which is obviously just as important. So we'll go into the approach phase. Our QNH, which is our altimeter, we set to 2997. So we're going to put that in there. The temperature for Atlanta is 28 degrees Celsius. So we'll put in 28. And the wind in Atlanta currently, right now, is 330 at 13 knots. /13, input that in right here, and we'll look at the approach chart for ILS 17. Uh-oh, what's happening here? There we go. And we're looking for a ILS, so that is 1190. That's our decision altitude. 1190. Put that in our barometric. So now we're pretty good. We are set. Okay, we're closing in on Atlanta. Probably about another 10 minutes tops before we've landed. Okay, our next altitude is 11,000 feet, 250 knots, and it looks like we are going to make it. Yes, we are. Okay, so approaching 10,000 feet, we're going to turn on our landing lights. We are going to turn on our seatbelts. And we're going to set our auto brake to medium because I want to stop pretty quickly. You can do it low if you have like a 9,000 foot runway and there's not a lot of weight. So you know what? We'll just do low. If you're worried about passenger comfort and all that kind of stuff, you're going to want low. If you've got a short runway or the runway's wet, not wet. If you've got a short runway or you're really heavy, you're going to want to put the brakes on medium. Max is really for takeoff or aborted takeoffs. So we're going to go do low. That will engage the brake the moment we retard. And you're going to hear it. The plane's going to say retard. When we retard throttle back to idle, it will engage the braking system automatically. We're going to arm our spoilers. What else am I missing for landing? Set the backup altimeter just in case. And if we really wanted to geek out, we could do our approach, our landing stuff. So we're landing in Atlanta. It's dry. The runway is 26 right, I said. 26 right. The weather, we're going to apply the weather, and we're going to say... say low automatic brake, idle no rev, auto thrust is on, flaps at full, and we'll do an auto land. How do you calculate this? Landing weight 127 maybe? I don't know. Never used it. Never had to. Alright, there's Poba and there's Bamboo. So we're going to have to... What we're going to do is the way this looks is we're going to turn to Poba and then we're going to have to hook left to land. Now, Bamboo is 4,000 feet. So what you see here is you see Bamboo at 4,000 feet, but that is only 10 miles away from the landing site. So it's going to be a turn into a quick landing. Alright, we're going to hit Daffy at 8,000 feet. Then Poba, and then I will reduce down to 4,000 feet for Bamboo. See what it looks like outside. Holy crap. That's crazy. And these are medium settings, by the way. They're not even like ultra settings. I have it set to medium because of, I've got, Discord, a stream running, Streamlabs running, a camera, freaking all kinds of things running in the background. And my fans sound like the freaking turbines of this A320. So if I want any reasonable frames per second, I'll keep it medium. But just to give you some kind of perspective on how far games have come since, I was a kid, since Tragic was a kid. They've come a long way. Long way. Okay, so this is our turn to base, essentially. This is going to put us perpendicular to the runway. We're going to reduce our altitude to 6,000. And we're just going to go ahead and manually do that. So we're going to do an open descent. We're going to force the plane to 6,000 feet. Turn our terrain assistance on. And when people say ceiling, this is kind of what they mean. So you've got clouds, and so when they say, hey, broken to whatever, and it's like you go any higher than that, and I remember Oregon Trail, and what was that? Carmen San Diego, I think it was, like in school. The 4 computers that school had. And kids were always trying to play like Carmen San Diego and Oregon Trail. Alright, we're about 15 miles from the airport. Where in the world is Carmen San? Yeah. I think by the time I made it to high school, they had Sim City, I think was brand new when I was in high school, and that was like what everybody wanted to play. Was it Sim City, or you built the little cities? Okay, we're at 6,000 feet. We're going to go ahead and descend to 4,000 for Bamboo. Oh yeah, SimCity. Color monitors, it was amazing. Alright, so we're going to go into our performance page here, and we're going to go ahead and activate the approach phase. And what that'll do is it'll start to slow the plane down to make it ready for landing, so that way we can start bringing flaps out, all that kind of stuff, without blowing the flaps clear off the airplane. So what I'm going to do from this point forward is I'm going to use the keybinds and controls that I have to reduce flaps, so that way I can have a pretty good control of the way down. We'll kind of talk through this as we descend. All right, we're going to manually turn toward Bambi. So I'm going to take my heading mode into manual, and I'm going to turn roughly to 310 degrees. We are landing at 26 right, so actually we want to go at, we'll go 310 degrees. And what we're trying to do is we're flying, so the runway is this way, and we're flying like this. So what we want to do is we want to fly at about a 30-degree angle, and what will happen is the plane's systems will pick up the localizer from the runway and automatically turn the plane to line up. Need that manual descent down to 4,000 feet. Oh, hey, Templar, what's going on? Yeah, nice view. Can't see anything. This is why, so if I were a pilot, in real life in an Airbus with like 300 people in the back, this would freak me the hell out. Because I know I'm only 5,000 feet above the ground, and I can't see anything. This is one of those, like, Jesus take the wheel moments. Like, you gotta have faith in something, that all of this stuff is working. Alright, we're gonna continue to turn 300. Okay, here we are, coming in. And we should be pretty much in line, so we're gonna ILS localizer. All right, there it goes. It's picked it up. There's the runway. Overshot just a little bit. It's gonna try to correct. There we go. All right, let's bring our flaps down. Flaps 1. That was a real messy localizer intercept, but it looks like we're doing pretty good here. The ILS looks good. We're a little high, but that's okay. We're gonna arm the approach mode. We have everything set. We're gonna go flaps 2. You can see the ILS, the purple ILS diamonds. They're starting to line up. So this is our horizontal and this is our vertical. Brakes are on. Lights are on. Do our last checks here. Lights are on. Everything's good. Right. Change to VTOL. You eventually get used to it. Tragic. You eventually get used to it. All right, we're gonna go flaps 3.
2,500.
Probably a little early, but in these situations, earlier is better than later. And by the way, my hands are not on any controls. They're not on the stick. They're not on the throttle. None of that stuff. So the plane is literally doing all of it by itself. All right, we're about 6 miles. Flaps 3. We're going to go ahead and drop a gear. Turn the game volume up so you can kind of hear. We're looking for 3 green lights. Okay, we're good to go. And we'll drop the flaps one more time. Now what I like to do, even though the plane can land itself, what I like to do is 100 feet above the minimum is when I turn off the autopilot and I hand fly it in. So what that means is as you get lower, the aircraft is going to do call outs for you. It's going to say 100 above, which is 100 feet above the minimum that we put into the computer. The minimum is the altitude at which if you can't see the runway, you need to abort the landing. So in our case, it was 1,900 and something feet barometric, or 200 feet radio. So if by 200 feet above the ground you still can't see the runway, you need to place the throttle in the thrust levers to toga and do a go around. So it gives you a warning. If 2 pilots are sitting in the seat, what'll happen is you'll hear minimum, and the pilot in command will say continue, meaning they can see the lights, everything is good, they're not going to do a go around, they're clear for touchdown. You can see the poppy lights in the distance, which is 4 lights. They're either red or green. It depends on the angle you are to the lights. So if you're too high, they'll display white. If you're too low, they'll display red. Too white, too red means you're perfect.
400.
Okay, let's get ready to take control and disconnect the autopilot.
300.
100 above.
100 above, disconnect the autopilot. Okay. Do a little bit of... Yeah, I get it. Oh, shit.
50, 40, 30, 20,
Little off center
retard.
line. Whoop. Oh, that was a real crappy landing. Oh, that was crappy. Let's put the reversers on. I missed the high-speed turnoff. On the thrust. Oof. Alright, flaps going up. Landing lights off, taxi lights on. Turn off the ILS and the flight directors. These are the times I wish I had pedals still, because I could fucking mess around with the mouse and not have, still control the plane. You deal with Harrison Ford. He got his license suspended, I think. Tragic, if you're not aware, Harrison Ford, like, oh man, there's a video of it. He was landing at John Wayne International Airport, something like that. He was cleared to land, and instead of landing on the runway, he landed on a taxiway right next to it, and almost clipped the tail of a passenger airliner. So, yeah. The ATC recording is out there, so just Google or YouTube Harrison Ford landing and it'll bring it up. I know, right? Taxiway Ford. Misuse of track IR. No, don't stop there. Come on. There we go. Alright, engage the freaking parking brake. Turn off the taxi lights. And good to go. I know. I don't know why he's not there doing one of these numbers. Alright, so in this point, usually what you would do is you would turn on the APU when you're taxiing, so that way it's on, ready to go. When you get to the stand, he's out back smoking a cigarette right back over here somewhere over here. So when you get to the stand, you can turn off the engines. It's not really, I mean, they do that just to save fuel and engine life, that kind of stuff. So that's pretty much it. Now we just do the shutdown procedures, which we could do just by doing this. Turn off engine 1 and 2. It'll spin down and everything will go black. Ta-da! And then the battery is powering those two things, so we'll turn off these two batteries. Off, off. And we're done. That's it. So, guys, this is the stream for the day. Hopefully it was informative, you know, hopefully somebody gets something out of it. Thanks for the follows. I appreciate the help, and I'll see you guys later.